a lot of fans are lumping Rafael Montero's contract in with Jose Abreu's as part of that Jim Crane, Jeff Bagwell coalition of decisions that were made in the absence of a GM. I just wanted to get your guys' take on this, since it is such the hot topic. Is that fair? Is it fair to compare those two contracts right now, Montero and Abreu?
I would say in Montero's case, now he's had a couple of poor outings, but as a relief pitcher, I mean, really season long, where we have guys throwing 60, 70 innings, that's it. But when you've thrown just 12, 15, 18 innings, if you go have one outing or in 2/3 of an inning, you get blown up and you give up 3-4 runs, I mean, warps your ERA in a hurry. Montero was an overpay off one good season in the major leagues in his 30s to go 3 years, $11.5 million per. Or a year earlier, they wouldn't go to 3 years, 24 on Kendall Graveman. So 3 years, 34.5. It was an overpay, but not a catastrophic. What if Jacob deGrom's arm falls off and the Rangers 5 years, $185 million? But it was an overpay. That said, it's not as if it hamstrung the Astros from making other moves unless a self-imposed salary cap had them do that. But Montero was fantastic last season. Right? Meanwhile, Stanek, his use to me has been curious since really late last season when his ERA was barely 1 and he couldn't find work basically in the postseason unless it was mop-up stuff. His command can be off, and, well, you make one mistake after you walk a guy and can be part of a big inning. Sure. I said off air before we started up here, love, war, and baseball, all's fair in terms of assessing and making judgments, and we just try to rein in the insane and talking things out. But Montero overall has not been good this season, but he's Mariano Rivera compared to what Jose Abreu has been at first base.
Yeah, I understand you're going to compare them because it was Crane and Bagwell basically making these moves, and they didn't seem very.
Blame it all on Reggie Jackson, Josh.
Yeah, put it on Mr. October needs to catch some too, right? But I can understand how you would see that, hey, this doesn't feel like a typical Astros kind of move. But I will say this, John and I talked about it on the video the other day. The Abreu deal, the Astros are reluctant to give out a 10-year deal because they don't want the last 3 years of those 10-year deals where the player isn't very good and they're way overpaid. With Abreu, they just went out and signed him for those last 3 years of what in this kind of theory would have been a 10-year deal. You're signing up for ages 36, 37, and 38 at over $20 million a year. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, to where you don't want to pay Kyle Tucker on a long-term contract, but you'll play Abreu just for the backside of something like that. So I don't put that with Montero. That's just a short-term 3-year deal. They know Stanek going to be a free agent this year. They know that Neris could be gone after this year. So they were kind of stacking things, like Charlie has mentioned on the show before, getting prepared that maybe some of those guys leave. And as far as Montero, his ERA was 2.77 before the other night's game. It jumped all the way to 5.27. Abreu's been terrible all year. Now you can just look at the numbers and say Montero's terrible after one outing. So putting them in the same, they're not in the same ballpark. They're not in the same city.
And there's still time for redemption for Jose Abreu, but it's just been bleaker. I don't know what bleakest is, but if you're not there when your OPS is in the 520 range, how low can you go? It's not as if he's compensating defensively, but they had a dire need, and he'd been a good, dependable run producer for years. We don't know what proportion of the decision-making Jeff Bagwell had. Did Bagwell see himself a little bit in Abreu and just a relentlessly consistent year after year run producer, a gamer who hardly ever missed games? Maybe Jeff Bagwell failed to calculate, well, what if 36-year-old Jose Abreu has some 36-year-old Jeff Bagwell in him, where Bagwell was just done. Of course, Abreu didn't have any sort of injury problem that would make you think, hey, how can he be this abominably bad so far? Yet he's been in the lineup every freaking game so far this season, and I know they have limited alternatives, thin bench, no one else you're going to call up, but to not have one day off somewhere along the way, and let me briefly piggyback that, Dusty needs to get off I have to split up Jordan and Kyle Tucker no matter what, not with a giant millstone between them. And it's not as if this decision gets made, Dusty's a genius because it works out. Good decisions can flop, just as lousy decisions can work out. That's baseball. That's life. But the Sunday game, for instance, in Seattle, where Jordan gets on to lead off the ninth inning, tying run comes to the plate, and Abreu hits a feeble little chopper up the middle for an easy double play. I'm not saying that if Kyle Tucker is batting cleanup, he automatically hits the game-tying home run. But I want him up before I get Abreu up there. And if the point is, well, they just pitch around Tucker. Well, they're just going to pitch around him to put first and second, the tying runs, on base, and you're scared to death to have Abreu come up in that situation. Well, what the hell is he doing in the lineup to begin with? Certainly in the cleanup spot. So when Altuve and Brantley get back, unless Dusty's thinking, well, I'm going to lead off Brantley because I certainly can't go lefty, lefty, lefty. They have what we're hoping are 4 competent offensive players until Bregman pulls his head out. The lineup should be Altuve 1 against right-handed pitching, absolutely. Altuve 1, Brantley 2, Jordan 3, Tucker 4, probably Bregman 5, and then whatever after that. But the absolute refusal to go Jordan, Tucker back-to-back, it's just Daffy Dusty on this one.
Yeah, for me, the Abreu ground has been tilled, if not over-tilled. So I'm going to go back to the Montero contract. And for me, I think a lot of the, let's call it what it is, a lot of the revisionary comments on this, I think do include some context, though, because Montero got this contract after having one good season. He was in 2021 DFA. That's how they were able to get him on a deal, was he had been designated for assignment, ended the year with like a 6.39 ERA. Unbelievable in 22, but then was signed to that 3-year deal. And for me, Josh, you mentioned his ERA, which it's been excellent over the past couple of years, outside of now in which it's over 5. But for me, with Montero, it's not the ERA that tells the full story with Rafael Montero. It's about his WHIP number. And coming into Saturday's game, he had a WHIP that I believe was verging on 1.5. After that game, he's now at 1.168. He just puts a lot of guys on bases. And we look back at the postseason last year, Ryan Presley was asked in multiple situations in the postseason to come in and get 4 and 5, if not 6 out saves, because Montero or some other part of the bullpen would get in trouble late in the game. So it seems that Montero's ERA doesn't always tell the story of, sometimes he's a powder keg waiting to explode. And what we saw Saturday night, I think, was a culmination of what happens when you don't have elite defense backing you behind a struggling pitcher, because Montero came in, couldn't find the zone, 2-out walk, which, always killers. And then, obviously no one could have foreseen 7 runs being put up within a two out, with 2 outs on the board. So to me, I don't know. Again, I don't think this is a bad contract. I definitely think it's unfair. Just to answer the initial question, I definitely think it's unfair to lump these 2 contracts in with one another. I guess the thing that would have made me feel a little better about this contract, and again, hindsight, right, was maybe if it's a 2-year with a third of a team option, in which maybe it's the same amount, but maybe the Astros get a little bit of risk mitigation on that 3rd year, so that you're not running this guy all the way up to 39 without any sort of insurance against that final year. But it is what it is. Do you guys think would that be more of a contract that I think is more palatable to everyone? Or, I mean, if Montero turns this around, no one's even complaining about this contract, right? Are we even talking about this because this was a 1-game sample and just Abreu has been so bad, so it's just lumping everything into one conversation?
It was a crushing loss,
yeah.
Having that lead that way. And you thought they had that game wrapped up, that you had the series wrapped up, and to go out like that, people are going to talk about it. But how bad was Stanek in that exact same game? Stanek's got an even higher WHIP than Montero does. Stanek's is at 1.85 is his WHIP, and his ERA is over 5 too. So, I mean, this is another guy they really counted on, and it hasn't gone well for him this season. So, but I'm not going to bury my head in the sand. Montero's got to pitch better. I think his average against is over 300. That's not what you're looking for. He's got to pitch better. He's got to hit the strike zone better. There's improvement to be made, but he's not killing you. We know how relief pitchers kind of go up and down from year to year. I mean, think of what Maton was last year, and he's been lights out this year. Montero could come out and be terrific next season. And, anywhere from $9 to $11 million for a setup type pitcher, that's kind of about the going rate. Astros just kind of on the top side of that, around 11. I think if it would have been Click that signed him, I don't know if we'd be hearing, all this outcry that, lumping Montero in with Abreu.
If Montero goes down in flames and he was a one-hit, one-season wonder, it's not devastating to the Astros payroll going forward. I mean, all teams have contracts that work out. Yeah, you want to avoid the 11-year, $280 million, or Contreras with the Cardinals. Wait, he's not our catcher. He got here 20 minutes ago. 5 years, $87.5 million type contract. And they're 17-17, and Astro themselves, frustrations are higher this deeply into the season than we've been accustomed to around here for quite some time. I don't even know if people got worked up in frustration over 2020 with the funkiness of the short COVID season. It's like fans could go to the game and boo if that was their emotion of the moment. But every once in a while, you need to chalk it up to crazy. What happens. All right, 2 out, no one on, up 3-0. And if you turned in for the night and woke up in the morning, what the hell? And it reminded me of a game years ago, 2001 or so, when Billy Wagner was great, right? Billy the Kid, lights out, worthy Hall of Famer, maybe future Hall of Famer now, finally, Billy Wagner. They were playing at the Pirates, who were in a phase of their history where they were for hunger. And Wagner's on the mound going in to just finish it off in the 9th inning. 7-2 lead. 2 out, nobody on. And 10, 15 minutes later, however long it took, the Pirates won the game off Billy Wagner. Brian Giles hit a 3-run walk-off home run after the Pirates strung together hit after hit after hit. It was about as amazing a one inning, what just happened, that I think I've ever seen. So, it was one night in early May that if the Astros get the ship right or wind up in the playoffs in any fashion, that, it's a faint footnote, if that. Of course, if they miss out on a wild card spot by one game, May 6th, I'll never forget it for many Astros.
One quick thing there I wanted to mention, too, is just Astros fans, you're losing Urquidy, you're losing Luis Garcia, and then JP France comes out and pitches damn well, and you're going like, all right, well, we're going to be okay maybe here. And then you get that total flop from Montero and you blow it, and just kind of all that goodwill, all that, I think we're going to be okay, just goes right out the door. So I think that was a big part of it.